began to work on myself. I began to fix the business that I had, which was a financial planning firm. We've shaped, started to get the finances in order, started to focus on me, which a lot of guys don't do. You know, I look at guys driving down the road to work and I assume they're miserable because I can see in their eyes they're miserable. They're driving to a job that they hate, to sit in a cubicle or box for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, to get home, you know, to feel annoyed or put out that they have to do anything with their wife or kids, eat dinner, maybe watch some TV for a couple hours, go to bed, sleep an insufficient amount of sleep, and then get up and do the same thing over and over and over again. And these guys are just running through this cycle. I know what it feels like because that was me. And when I started to work on myself, I was able to remedy and fix a lot of that. I feel like over the past, it's been almost 11 years now since my wife and I went through our separation. I'm a significantly better husband, significantly better father, but that all stemmed from learning to take care of myself. And you see these guys who can't lead their families, can't lead their communities, can't even lead themselves. And I found that for me, as I learned how to be a more effective man, I became fulfilled. And that's the problem, is the further that men move away from what it means to be a man and move away from genuine masculinity in the name of fairness, in the name of equality, in the name of just sit down, shut up, do what you're supposed to do, the less fulfilled, the less satisfied, the less productive, the less effective, and more miserable that they are. And so I feel like the work that we do is a call to step away from mediocrity, a call to step away from the trends of society into and reclaiming and restoring what it means to be a man. When what you do literally represents the difference between life and death, you start to realize the weight of your consequences. Most people don't have consequences for their choices. I mean, you have a bad day at work, you get reprimanded, you know, even if you lose your job, welfare kicks in, pays it for you, like there's no consequence for your decisions. When you're in battle, there's heavy consequences. Somebody dies. And not just somebody, the guy that you're responsible for. Like there's consequences for our actions. That's something that's stuck with me forever. And every little action, not just the life and death situations, but how many of us are indifferent to the way that we show up? You know, how many of us are indifferent to the way that we communicate with our wife because she'll always be there? Or the way that we communicate with our kids because we're the boss and they need to do what we tell them to do. And we don't think about how fragile life is. And we don't think about how powerful we are. I mean, we really are. If you think about the words, if you think about our actions, and yes, it's more magnified in a combat environment, but that taught me a lot about what leadership means. It taught me a lot about service. It taught me a lot about the words I choose to use, the actions, the behaviors, the thoughts that I have, and how powerful they are, and why they matter. I think there's a lot of people who think that what they say and do doesn't matter. And that's not true. It matters to you and it matters to the people around you. The way that I communicate and the way that I choose to respond to that situation spells the difference between life and death. I had to take responsibility for myself and for other people I didn't even know I had to take responsibility for. And that translates perfectly into running a business, leading a family, coaching a sports team, being involved in your community, any other capacity in which we serve. Masculinity is not all man, and femininity is not all woman. Masculine qualities and characteristics: strength, decisiveness, fortitude, resiliency, rational, thinking, an ability to take higher levels of risk. That's not exclusive to men. It's just what we would consider a masculine characteristic. So women are fully capable of exhibiting that. And that's why the women that you see in the military who succeed and thrive in the military are generally more masculine, or in the corporate world.
Okay.
Of course they're gonna be, they have to be.
Right.
They have to be highly competitive, they have to be decisive, they have to be willing to take risks, they have to be firm, strong mentally, physically, emotionally. So women like that are gonna be more masculine. It's not an organization's responsibility to accommodate other individuals. If an individual, whoever it may be, wants to engage in an organization or environment, it's their responsibility to assimilate to that organization. You want to be here? Great. Here's the standard. Can you meet it? Yes or no? You can meet it? Great. Welcome. No? You're not welcome. That's what I think it should be. You know, and that goes for men or women. If there's an inferior male soldier, he's got to go because he's putting people at risk. Same thing in the work environment. If there's somebody in the team, whether it's a man or woman who's not performing, they got to go. Give them all the chances and all the training and all the tools available to catch up. We're not slowing down, and we're definitely not turning around to carry your weight. So let's go, catch up, or we got to let you go out into the world. You know, you have a book, for example, and your stack of books over here. It's like, that's a great stack of books. And even if you read it, still a great stack of books. It doesn't really mean anything until you apply it. So I learned a lot of this, I observed a lot of this, but I felt like there was a bridge between what I knew and what I did. So when I started Order of Man in 2015, my goal has always been, and I told the guys, to bridge the gap between what we know and what we do. And that gap, I call that the integrity gap. And we all have it. Some small integrity gaps, some have a large integrity gap. I have an integrity gap, you have an integrity gap. I'm constantly trying to fill it, so are you, I know that of you. Because if all it was knowledge, we'd all be independently wealthy, we'd all have chiseled six-pack abs, we'd be the greatest father or husband or wife or whoever we were trying to become, and we would succeed and thrive in every single area of life. Because we're not at a lack of information. You've got your tablet in front of you, you can access whatever you want on a moment's notice. It's not the information, it's the application of that information. And whoever can apply it the fastest, quickest, and most efficiently will win.
Okay.
I wanted to solve my own problems. A man's job is to be a protector, provider, and a presider. I think everybody generally and universally agrees with the protector part. That's not one people push back on a lot.
Physically protecting?
Yes.
Okay. Kids,
you know, even when
people.
I'm walking around in a new environment with my wife, it's my job to make sure we get from point A to point B safely. It's not her job. And when shit hits the fan, nobody's gonna look to the woman about it. Who are they gonna look to? The man. And am I gonna be the kind of guy that cowers in the corner and runs from that adversity because I'm scared? Or am I gonna be the guy who maybe is scared but has trained himself and made himself capable of protecting himself and others? That's the kind of guy I wanna be. Those are the kind of men that I aspire to be like. That's why I got into martial arts. Now, jiu-jitsu is not the end-all save-all, I'm not saying that, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. It's certainly moving away from being dependent to being self-reliant. There's 3 times a man can cry. He can cry the birth of his child, the loss of a loved one, or the end of Rudy. Those are the only 3 times a guy can cry. Look, men cry, all right? I cry. Like I see a movie that inspires me or I get motivated about, I cry. Now I'm not gonna go bumbling around like an idiot because I got work to do. And sometimes crying isn't the appropriate response. And sometimes it is. Sometimes being vulnerable is not the appropriate response. You think about the word vulnerability, weakness. There's a time when a leader can't express vulnerability. He has to be strong, he has to be resolute, because that's what the team requires of him. There's a time and a place to express who it is you are and show your flaws and your weaknesses and your vulnerabilities. And there's a time not to. It's not always appropriate either. A lot of people don't seem to think that. They think, oh, men's always soft and always vulnerable and always able to cry, and anything other than that is just traditional gender roles. No, it just means that if I'm in a staff meeting and I'm feeling scared about a new project that we're investing in, I'm not gonna cry in front of my staff. What kind of influence is that going to elicit in them? Are they gonna be excited? Act appropriately is what I say.